Hey y'all, and welcome back to another video of My Creative Life with Kelssweetie, where we read books and we make art. Today we are talking about my favorite Asian horror. AANH, actually, is there any? No, it's really AAPI, to be honest with you. Actually, more just I'm gonna be honest, it's just Asian horror. South Asian included. Or more so weird lit. I've been talking to people a lot lately about where the weird lit genre came from, and I think it really had to do with the fact that horror has gone through a boom as of late. More people are interpreting what they believe is horror, and there are some horror purists out there who are just like, this isn't scary. So, a little bit of a tangent, but I'm interested to know what you guys kind of think about it and everything, the idea of the weird lit category. Is it really just horror that isn't horrific? Whatever that may mean. Off topic, but I am curious. This is something that I've been thinking a lot about lately. That being said, these are probably my Asian weird lit books. I've not seen enough we are halfway through May, and I've not seen enough Asian recommendations out here on the YouTube for horror, when right now Asian stories in horror are in an uptick. And a lot of my favorites from the last year have been by Asian writers. So I wanted to get on here, do some quick recs, because one, I don't know why we haven't seen more recommendations, but also an opportunity for me to just kind of gush over some favorites of mine as of late and some that I would highly recommend. These are not the exhaustive list, but let's get into the intro and everything, and then on the other side of that, let's get into these recommendations. Intro, I kind of had some weird conversation around the idea of weird girl lit or weird lit as a whole, and I guess that all kind of stems from a lot of where these books that I'll be recommending kind of come from. Type of conversation happening right now on Instagram about what weird lit actually is. What is horror? Does horror need to be slashers? Does horror need to be horrific? Especially as horror is reaching this boom. And in my opinion, it doesn't. But also, that's why I feel like in the last couple of years, we've seen the weird lit genre really blow up. It's kind of this way to keep the horror purist off of us from loving these books that just aren't necessarily horrific or slashers or Stephen King for that matter. And some of my favorite genre of weird lit is Asian authored weird lit, and I haven't seen enough recommendations here, so I was like, you know what, be the change you want to see. I'm going to give you guys some of my favorite recommendations by Asian authors writing in my favorite genre. The Vegetarian by Han Kang. So I know that when I first covered this, and I read this for Reading Riley's book club, the Midnight Society book club, go check her out. When I first read it, I don't think that I really fully let it sink in yet. And since then, I think about this all the time. I think about, this book is about a woman who decides one day she's vegetarian. And her family loses it. Her husband loses it. They're just horrible people, to be completely honest with you. And at one point, she becomes further and further into herself being vegetarian, that they even kind of lock her up in kind of an asylum or a home, because they're just like, you're crazy, like, just eat. And they take it personally. This woman who has just decided to make a decision, not based on anyone else, but for herself, has pissed off her family so much. Pissed off her husband, her father. You've disgraced us. Her mother is crying, all because she decided to become a vegetarian. And in the end, ends up basically wasting away, but staying true to what she wanted to do for herself. I think when I first read this, it was too weird for me to understand what was going on. It was too frustrating. I think I was so angry at everybody in this book except for the main character and her sister, who we also kind of get a little bit of insight on as well, to really understand how insightful moving this book and its plot actually is. This woman decided to make a decision for her, did not ask anybody else to be vegetarian, even still cooked her husband meals that weren't vegetarian. She simply wanted to make a decision for herself, and her entire family took it as an offense to them. All because she was a woman. While all of the men in here are making decisions left and right for themselves, aren't hearing a thing about it. I think that this is extremely moving, and I think that I was too harsh on it, and I wasn't ready for the message that it had when I first read it. And I think that not enough people are, because of how infuriating it is when you're reading it. I think you're so upset at everybody in her life that you're not even really getting to what do you actually love that this book's trying to say. Highly recommend it. I get why it gets so many awards. I get why it gets recommended all the time. I did not understand it when I first read it, to be completely honest, but I truly, truly understand it now, going through those struggles myself. And I think that this was an amazing allegory to that conversation. And now that I do understand that more, I could definitely see myself trying to go in for another reread on this, because now I feel like I have fresh eyes looking into it. First, to start off, the vegetarian, something that's a little bit classic. We hear a lot of around this time. A new one that is personally a favorite of mine of this year. I could say easily this could end up being my top 5 of the year, one of my top 5 of the year, and that's The Eyes Were the Best Part by Monika Kim. We had the amazing opportunity to ask Monika Kim for some questions for the Night Terror magazine, the zine that I work on, the horror zine that I work on, and she had some amazing answers to kind of where she was going with this book. So it has to do with a Korean American college girl. She just started college. She has a sister. Her mom and her dad have just separated, and her mom has started dating this white Republican, blue-eyed type of man. John, I believe. I can never remember this man's name. George. Keep on calling him John. But George. At the same time, while Ji-won, our main character, is in school, there is a George of her own who has all of a sudden, she's caught the eye of. He's very obsessive. He feels this, I'm not like other guys type. I'm a feminist type that doesn't feel genuine, and honestly, in some ways, even exoticizes her. At the same time, she's also kind of falling in love with a girl in her class as well, and discovering her sexuality. This book is crazy because in its synopsis, it tells you what's going to happen. She becomes a serial killer who eats eyeballs. And you would think, well, then why do I need to read it now? You just told me what the whole turn of events is. And it's not because of that. I think that the whole point of this is not really the story itself, but what it represents. For Ji-won, for her mother, for even George. I think this book covered so much more than what its synopsis really tells you about the story. It talks about cultural exchanges as far as being second-gen Korean and from an immigrant family, and what does that mean as she's really learning from both sides of where her homes lie culturally. But also, it talks more about misogyny through generations. Her mother needs a male approval 24/7, to the point where she will even beget her own daughters for it, which is very sad and frustrating, and anger. It's full of anger, but also you realize her mother is from a Gen X generation, growing up in Korea. There's a completely different viewpoint on what is freedom for a woman in that kind of idea. As well as you see George, who you absolutely hate. You're meant to hate him. But there are these moments where you see where misogyny has let him down, where this toxic masculinity has let him down in regards to really dealing with his emotions. And even for the father, you never even hear from. You only hear what he may be doing, but he never shows up as his actual character in here. This book covers misogyny more than it even covers dealing with cultural exchanges, dealing with growing up in 2 different cultures and everything. It more so talks about how misogyny lets everyone down, generation to generation, male or female, what have you. And I love that. I love that about this book, and I think that a lot of people didn't get that. I've been hearing a lot of people kind of go, that's not what I was really expecting. I was expecting more eyeball gore. It's not a horror in that way. It's definitely thought daughter. If you get it, you get it. And I really love the point of all of it when we kind of move through what G1 is dealing with. A lot there, especially near the end, we get a lot of monologues talking about these different characters and what they're dealing with. And I thought it was really interesting. And I think it's an even more important book for somebody who is a woman trying to move through misogyny and learning that the call can come from inside the house. Misogyny could be coming from your own parents who have taught you a certain thing. And I really loved how complex that conversation is in this. Absolutely loved it. Monica Kim's amazing, and I can't wait for her next book to come out to see where that kind of goes. This is another one that we heard about tons last year, so I'm not going to spend far too much time on it because everybody was reading that. Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Wong. This, I loved it though. I really did love it. If you're looking for body horror, if you're looking for something a little more shocking, this will do that for you near the end. I think the rest of it is such a fever dream that you don't have a chance to really realize that this is horror. This is body horror. It is certainly horror because it feels like an acid trip of huge proportions. Our main character, who has no name, we never hear a name from them whatsoever, which has to deal with their lack of identity, their issues with identity, who they are, starts working at a goop kind of like store, which is like very much like this isn't beauty products or health products type of thing. And they end up going through all of these different procedures and using all of these products, literally changing what they look like to meet European standards, to be completely honest. And they're doing all of this while they're also trying to learn about what their sexuality is, trying to come to terms with where they are with their parents, who they take care of, trying to come to terms with who they are in the world at large, being Asian American and being a woman and being queer and being fill in the blank and all of that. That's what this book covers quite a bit in a short amount of time, all things considered for the size of the book. And in the end, I think that I came to the conclusion, because I feel like there's many different ways that you can view this ending, that our bodies are corporeal meat suits and they really don't matter. Our experiences are what matter. And I think that that's an ongoing theme that I've been really interested in as of late. And I feel like Natural Beauty in its ending talks more about that we worry so much about these ideas of what this meat suit looks like and how can I move through life with it, and not what do you really want to do, and will you ever have the freedom to actually do those things, especially considering where our main character ends up at the very, very end. I really love this book. I know that everybody in the world was talking about it. I never really got a chance to speak too much on it, so I do fully recommend it. It's worth the hype. Absolutely recommend. Another one is from Bora Chung, who I think a lot of people have heard of. I think many people have probably seen this cover, not to be confused with Mona Awad's Bunny, but I finally found this at the thrift store. I'd been wanting to read it for some time. It was also a cover that I wanted because this has been re-released a couple of times, and it's a collection of short stories. Absolutely loved it for a majority of it. You know, when I pick up a kind of a short story collection, I rate all of the stories within them separately, but as a collection, this was around a 4 for me, especially considering one of the last stories that had to deal with depression and these ghosts, and many different topics are covered within this novel. And I really love that because I feel like it really showed Bora Chung's versatility. And I love that when somebody puts out a short story collection, I want you to show me that you put it out for a reason and there wasn't a reason that you put out several different novellas. You know, give me, if you have 10 short stories, I want each one to feel slightly different. I don't want to sit there and go, didn't I just hear this one? I don't want to do that. You do not have to worry about that. We go from fantasy, we go to mythology, we do horror, we do ghost stories, we do body horror, we do gross out weird lit. There's one story in here where this woman's excrement in her toilet slowly turns into a daughter of some kind. And it ends up being this conversation about aging and women and taking the places of our mothers and being our mothers being resentful of us. Again, weird, very weird, in some ways even horrific. Like if it was a TV, I sometimes think like for weird lit, if any of these storylines, like we have conversations about, oh, is it actually horror? Is it actually horror? If any of these storylines in some of these weird lit books were TV shows, you would easily say, no, that's horror. When something like Yellow Jackets exists or Black Mirror exists or whatever, you can't tell me that a weird lit storyline with the right visuals is just horror. It's just horror. It may be like not even closed door horror at that. And I feel like Bora Chung's Cursed Bunny does that. I think there's a lot of nuanced horror within the stories in this book. And some of my favorites, like I said, I think the instrument one was a really big fun, favorite of mine. Another one at the very end, Reunion. That was probably the most memorable. I still think about Reunion every week or so. Like it really has to do a lot with families and not feeling enough and unfinished stories and what leads to a person finishing their story before it's over. And how can you ever save a person from that? And again, how are you? She does such an amazing job, I think, of having short stories that bring these ideas up, but doesn't necessarily leave you hanging, especially considering how deep these storylines or these plot lines are. I really do recommend it. I'm so happy that I had found it at the thrift store, and it was a lot of fun as well because it like had like a little note in it. Y'all, use your thrift stores. Use your thrift stores. I cannot say that enough. Somebody is probably going to get rid of a book that you've been looking for a long time, and it has a cover that you've been wanting. So I can't recommend this one enough, especially, again, if you're somebody who is a stickler regarding short stories, like you've just read too many where it feels like these all feel like the same story, just different characters. You won't feel like that with this one. Speaking of short story collections, one of the few Southeast Asian stories, unfortunately, on this list. I wish I had more. As y'all know, I'm constantly struggling to find Southeast Asian weird lit or horror. If y'all have any recommendations, please put them down below, because that's a huge issue. Pacific Islander horror, I have looked. It feels nearly non-existent, to be honest. Please tell me any recommendations y'all may have. It's been a real struggle point for me, especially as somebody who feels like East Asian stories take up a lot of the month. As I've said before, I feel like far too many backgrounds and cultures are put on the back of May. And so plenty of people get left behind. There's a lot of confusion on who and what cultures should be a part of the narrative. We won't get too far into it, but that's how I feel. Mouth by Paloma Ghosh. I just finished this one, actually, for this month. As y'all know, this was on my May TBR. I won't go far too much into it, as y'all will hear about it in my May wrap-up. But as far as short stories go, honestly, this is one that I feel like if you're somebody who loves horror poetry or weird poetry, or even a book like Our Wives Under the Sea, that just feels poetic in its writing, in its imagery and everything, I highly recommend Mouth to you. I think it took me a minute to kind of get into the writing style since I'm very used to that like harsh speed, like let's get it going type of writing style. And I realized I had to check myself and realize you're reading art. Let's slow it down. And I did find that a good portion of these were really insightful and something that you really need to kind of go back to. There's and again, you're not running into that issue where you feel like, oh, didn't I just hear this story? This story seems familiar. None of the stories in here feel familiar. They all feel like one of their own. And I love how Paloma Ghosh actually talks a lot about identity and sexuality as a femme and queerness and body autonomy within a lot of these stories from a point of perspective of her being from Calcutta. So I think that that's a narrative that we don't hear enough of. I think that it's one that I truly really enjoyed, and there was a hauntingness about it. There was one of the stories in here had to do with a haunting in regards to our main character and her mother, and being in a place that is supposed to be your home. She's gone back to Calcutta, and she's been spending, and her husband's in America. She's been spending her entire life growing up in America, although she spent her childhood there. And feeling like this place that's supposed to be culturally your home no longer fits, no longer feels like your home, needing this like release from it, and getting that from the ghost of her mother. These feeling and this metaphor from all of her family members not wanting her to go to a certain home, her grandmother's home, thinking that place is cursed, it's haunted, it's full of ghosts. The imagery within here is so colorful and insightful. There's another story in here about a woman who finds a wolf who has birthed a man, a baby, a half wolf, half human child, and the relationship between her and this child who grows to be a man, who grows to be a lover, who grows to be these different things, and her feeling trapped and not wanting to leave while having all of this freedom. And what does that mean if you don't move through that freedom? So many different things, right? So many insightful things. And that's why I kind of recommend this a lot to people who are into weird poetry, weird lit poetry, or horror poetry, or anything like that, because I do feel like if you're not used to a lot of metaphors and beautiful language, it could fly over your head. This one could definitely fly over your head. I know that because I had to get into the groove and kind of rewind on a couple of these stories just to really get how heavy some of them were, which they are. These are very insightful, feeling stories, and I really do recommend it a lot, especially if you're ready to do some thought daughter work on it. One of my last recommendations is one that I've loved for a while. I actually started reading this when I first got back into reading, and that was Severance by Ling Ma. This, I'm glad I did read it during 2020, because I ended up reading it in 2022, far too close to the pandemic. But it does have to do with a woman who is currently trying to survive through the epidemic. Are they naming it pandemic or epidemic? Oh, it doesn't have it on the back, of course. But it's basically the end of the world. Sickness is taken over, and it's not just a sickness, but one where it's like a parasite, where your mind is basically going through the motions and moving, like you've gone brain dead essentially, but your body's muscles are still moving through the motions of practices and things that it remembers out of your routine every day. So if you were going into work every single day, like, I'm on autopilot, okay, your brain remembers that. So it's just going to keep on doing that over and over and over until you collapse and you die. It's crazy. But I also love that this was, again, conversations in regards to her growing up Asian American, and what does that mean culturally, working for the company she was working for, and having this duty to stay there until literally she couldn't work there anymore. Literally, the company didn't exist anymore, and she was still going into work no matter what. This idea of duty to a job because of culturally being taught that. What do you do when that no longer exists if you've not done anything for yourself? Those conversations came up. Her conversations as a person, duty to herself versus her parents, this exploration of all of those things. And I really love that as somebody who is a workaholic. I really love that conversation and what that brought up for me personally. I think the ending definitely leaves you on a bit of a cliffhanger, which if you're like, I need this tied up in a bow, I will. I'm just giving you a heads up that it will not give you that. But I think that it was very clear also the conversations of what causes a cult to happen, what causes a following, what will happen to people when they're left without structure. And especially when a lot of us rely on those structures to tell us who we are. That's Severance. And I loved it. I still think about it all the time, especially in the conversations of when we were in the depths of the pandemic, when we were experiencing a lot of those questions. A lot of people were asking, who am I? And I think that we're going to be experiencing those things again as we reach a recession, and these conversations of, and seeing people laid off, and seeing, you know, budgets decrease and all of that, and going, who am I without this routine? Who am I without this structure or this company or this whatever in capitalist society to tell me who I am? That's this book. And I really recommend it, especially as we're coming up on another big moment. We're kind of even in it right now, for especially in America, but at the world as a whole right now. So this, highly recommend. Those are my recommendations, y'all. I do have plenty more that kind of fit in this recommendations genre for like weird lit or horror from Asian authors, but I do have some other videos planned, and I didn't want to just keep on giving you guys doubles of some of my favorite. But these are, I love these. As y'all can tell, I love a I love a weird narrative. And I've found that I love Asian femme writers. That's one thing that I've been noticing. I've been really moving towards a lot lately as far as plots and narratives are concerned. And more so because of there's been a lot of books that I've read in regards to that and queerness and that conversation. Duty, culturally, what does this mean? What do these things mean? I've either given them 4 or 5s for the most part, so I cannot recommend these enough. I'm really just like trying to put as many recommendations out there as possible because I feel like this year I've not seen so many posts or videos recommending Asian authors during this month, which is weird to me. I don't like that. So y'all make sure there's at least one Asian author on your TBRs this month. I mean, don't just not only read it during this month, but make sure y'all diversify your shelves per usual. I'm not liking what I'm seeing out there. I hope that y'all found some new favorites to check out from this video. Let me know down below if you guys have any recommendations yourselves, obviously, because I'm in love with I'm in love with this right now. I'm really like, I've noticed when I was doing this video, it's kind of started off with me just doing it because I was like, be the change you want to see. And then I realized, oh, I have a type. And I think that like, I want to lean more into that because obviously I'm into something regarding this because I had so many to kind of give. But let me know if you guys have any recommendations yourselves for me. I would love to check them out. And also let me know down below how you guys feel about the weird lit conversation I kind of started off this video with. I'm really interested to know how people are feeling about weird lit versus horror. What do these things mean? Where was the genesis of the weird lit genre? Because I feel like that's only been around for maybe 2-3 years. People used to just be like, it's horror. And then at some point, I think when Mona Awad started coming up, when we started seeing all these other women writers writing femme horror, we started to kind of see a change where people were calling it weird lit. Just because it was more psychological or more thought daughter horror than anything. So I think that's an interesting conversation and one that I would love to talk to y'all more about down in the comments. If you liked today's video, please subscribe down below. I plan on doing a couple of more recommendation videos throughout period. I've kind of planned some more rec videos. I know I've been doing a lot of Halloween as of late, and I want to make sure that I'm balancing it out so y'all know that we're still doing books here. Don't worry. We're just combining. We're just getting in the motions. But I have some more recommendation videos coming up, and I'm really excited for them because some of them are like my top 5 horror, my top 5 weird lit books. Again, that conversation is going to come up a lot, and I'm really excited to kind of get to them. So subscribe down below if any of that sounds great to you. Thank you for watching today's video, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye!